This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. We spend the rest of the hour with the Academy Award-winning filmmaker Michael Moore, the person behind Michael Moore in Trumpland, Fahrenheit 9/11, Bowling for Columbine, Sicko, Capitalism, A Love Story, and Where to Invade Next. Now Moore has added theater production to his list of accomplishments. He's now starring in his theatrical debut on Broadway, his play, The Terms of My Surrender. He launched the production with the question, can a Broadway show take down a sitting president? In typical Michael Moore fashion, the one-man show infuses humor as he examines the 2016 election, speaks with special invited guests, lays out a roadmap of what he believes needs to happen next. This is a clip from a recent performance of The Terms of My Surrender. In this one, he speaks to actress and activist Rosie Perez.
We have to resist, and we have to just march and shut him down. And I think that the way to do it is the same way that America shut down Trump Care, is not just go to the White House, but go to your local and state elected officials, because they really have a lot of power. And a lot of people don't understand that, you know, if you put pressure on them, they will cave. You know, Trump may not cave, but they will cave.
Right.
And
they want to keep their jobs.
They want to keep their jobs, and they want to keep their paychecks and their free health care. So it's true, though.
Ladies and gentlemen, Rosie Perez.
Thank you.
Yes, that is Rosie Perez, Puerto Rican actor and activist, speaking with our guest Michael Moore, who is now starring in his Broadway debut, The Terms of My Surrender. He came into our studio right before his matinee performance on Wednesday, and I just asked him, well, the question he opens with, what kind of Broadway show can take down a sitting president?
Yes, I think actually anybody watching this can do this. I really believe in the power of a few people can make huge change happen. And I talk about this in my show, that history is full of examples of people who really changed the world, not accepting the lie that they were told all their lives, that they were just a nobody from nowhere. And so I believe in that, and I believe so. Yes, so I'm on. You know, I've come from Michigan to New York to do this show. I come from the Brexit states out there, and I wanted to do this in the city that gave us Donald J. Trump. I mean, basically, I've come to the belly of the beast here. And we do the show 12 blocks from Trump Tower every day.
Didn't you take a bus there?
We took a bus. Yes, one night we thought we'd go over and have some cheesecake or a tortilla bowl or whatever it is that the KFC, whatever he loves. We were gonna like have some dinner with him, but he said he wasn't hungry. So, what are the terms of your surrender? Well, now, if I told you that, what's the point of coming to it? It takes me 2 hours to explain that. I can't. But basically, none of us are going to surrender. I mean, the actual terms are pretty extensive. It's not just getting rid of Trump. I mean, we have to take a look at how we got Trump. He didn't just fall out of the sky. He's the end result of decades of both dumbing down the country, but also the widening gap between those with wealth and those who work to provide the wealth for those who are rich. We just were interviewing Muhammad Yunus, the Nobel Peace Prize winner from Bangladesh, talking about he thinks it's now 5 men own more wealth than half the world's population, right? Isn't that amazing? 3.6 billion people. Yes, so he's the kind of natural result of this. It's not some crazy accident, the way I look at it. And in fact, he's the result of a racist clause in the United States Constitution. So that electoral college concept of trying to convince the slave states, as you know, you've talked about it on this show, to come into the country, the new country, and we put this clause in there that let them count slaves, while giving them no power, really. And so he benefited from that. So but the show isn't. I mean, it's not a history lesson. It's not a college lecture. Well, I mean, you've seen it, so
the show is spectacular, and you are constantly responding to whatever the latest is, which is happening every day. So on Sunday, you raise the fist in honor of Colin Kaepernick.
Yes, right. Well, I've been wearing Colin's jersey and the 49ers hat there for well over a year, since he first did that a year ago, last summer, and I participate in the NFL boycott. I don't watch any NFL games. I encourage people to boycott the sponsors of the NFL. The owners colluded to keep him from his job this year because he took a stand. So a few Sundays ago, I got the whole audience. We all stood with these signs, hashtag I'm with Cap, and I put that out on the internet. But this Sunday, I wore his jersey, the whole show, and the whole audience, most of them, raised the fist there with me on the stage. But what was interesting about this past Sunday, I just want to say this, is that it became more against Trump than about the original idea of what Colin was saying, which is that we have to take a stand against this brutality of police killing unarmed black citizens, and that's how this originally started. And the owners punished him for that, and it was supposed to send a message to the rest of the players: don't you take a stand, don't you speak out politically. After Trump said what he said, then it was clear all the players were all going to participate.
I want to go to that moment. Friday night, Huntsville, Alabama. This is what Donald Trump said at his rally.
Wouldn't you love to see one of these NFL owners, when somebody disrespects our flag, to say, get that son of a bitch off the field right now, out, he's fired. He's fired! You know, some owner's going to do that. He's going to say, that guy that disrespects our flag, he's fired. And that owner, they don't know it. They don't know it. They're friends of mine, many of them. They don't know. They'll be the most popular person for a week. They'll be the most popular person in this country, because that's a total disrespect of our heritage. That's a total disrespect of everything that we stand for, okay?
As he talked about firing these sons of bitches, Colin Kaepernick's mother said, guess that makes me...
Yeah, I'm not going to say
one
it,
proud one.
That Trump. See, this is what bothered me though about Sunday, is that we think that he's easily distracted by the shiny keys, whatever it is. There's this awful thing going on with the tragedy in Puerto Rico, and he's completely consumed with the NFL, and so we think that's how simple he is and where his mind goes. But I think, and I'm worried, that we're the ones distracted by the shiny keys, because as soon as he made such a big deal about it, then the protest shifted from what it's really supposed to be about: stop shooting black people in this country, police of America, and now it was all about Trump. And now the owners joined in. They all joined. And once a lot, I think a lot of the players, especially the white players, well, now I'm not going to lose my job if the owners are going to lock arms with us. But then the whole point, and I thought, Jesus, God, Trump is really good with this sort of the way we just jump to the next thing. Something really important is going on every single day in his administration, where they are poisoning this country, where they're selling off lands to oil companies, where whatever it is, it's going on as we speak right now. And we all of a sudden, and especially the mainstream media, gets focused on what he said about, Joe and Mika in the morning. It's just like the whole rest of the news cycle is all about Mika. And it's not about what it should really be about.
But when he does the attack, and goes after someone. Of course, with these players, we're talking about largely African-American teams, and he's attacking African-American players. You respond, as so many people do, and how critical it is. He may create the situation, but then it has to be responded to. And
then we have to point out, and I think, a lot of the players have pointed out, remember, this isn't really about Trump. We're doing this against the racial injustice, the racism that still exists in our society, and how safe it is to be a black man in our society when it comes to the police pulling you over or whatever. And I think nobody wants that to get lost in all this discussion.
So I want to go then to Puerto Rico, the critical point, right? He tweets however many times, 15 times over the weekend, about the NFL and fire them and cursing. Not once did he tweet about Puerto Rico. And I want to talk about the catastrophe, climate catastrophe there. It took him 5 full days to respond to the plight of Puerto Rico over the weekend. Right, 17 times about athletes and, again, protesting police violence. Facing withering criticism on Tuesday, he holds a news conference congratulating himself for his response to the disaster. I think he repeated nearly a dozen times that he was doing a great, amazing, tremendous, incredible job, and denied he'd neglected Puerto Rico. This is what he said.
I wasn't preoccupied with the NFL. I was ashamed of what was taking place, because to me that was a very important moment. I don't think you can disrespect our country, our flag, our national anthem. To me, the NFL situation is a very important situation. I've heard that before about, was I preoccupied? Not at all. Not at all. I have plenty of time on my hands. All I do is work. And to be honest with you, that's an important function of working. It's called respect for our country. The governor of Puerto Rico is so thankful for the great job that we're doing. We did a great job in Texas, a great job in Florida, a great job in Louisiana. We hit little pieces of Georgia and Alabama. And frankly, we're doing, and it's the most difficult job because it's on the island. It's on an island in the middle of the ocean. It's out in the ocean. You can't just drive your trucks there from other states. And the governor said we are doing a great job. In fact, he thanked me specifically for FEMA and all of the first responders in Puerto Rico. And we're also mentioning with that the U.S. Virgin Islands. It was devastated. So we are totally focused on that.
So that's President Trump. Instead of heck of a job, Brownie, it's heck of a job myself.
Yes. And Amy, it's an island. You know it's an island, don't you? And he went on to say, too, there's a big ocean. There's a big ocean there between us. It's like, I'm convinced he has no idea where Puerto Rico is. All he knows is that the people there are not white, and that's why it's not a priority. And let's just be honest and say, you know, how his mind thinks. And the way that he and others too focus on, you know, when they talk about these NFL players, as you say, are 70% African American, and how much they make, and how they keep saying this. Look how much they're not grateful to this country. Look how much they make. Look how much they make. You will never hear anybody complain about what Tom Hanks makes. You know, you will never. It's always a little tell that it's just, wait a minute. We let you in the club. Boy, behave yourself. You know, that's really the message. And that message, what right there about Puerto Rico. And by the way, did I mention the Virgin Islands? You know, it's like, you know, it's still like, see, we laugh, but now, see, we used to laugh at him, especially New Yorkers. You know this, because you guys are supposed to take care of him for about 40 years and make sure he wasn't foisted on the rest of us. I'm not putting you personally responsible for this, Amy, but I'm just saying, if Donald Trump came from Flint, Michigan, I couldn't show my face on this show, because how could I explain that I, for 30 or 40 years, you know, didn't do something about him there before he would be, you know, thrust upon this country. But he's not a joke. And the time to sort of laughing about this has to be hopefully long gone by now, because we are in very serious trouble here. And anybody who doesn't think he could be a two-term Trump is living in their little fantasy bubble. The Republicans are not going to impeach him. They've already pulled their gerrymandered districts back home. They're pretty sure they're safe. They don't think we can flip those 24 seats in the House next year and 3 in the Senate. And all he has to do is keep his base, which he seems to have pretty well intact, and win those same electoral states. So we have a real fight on our hands here.
Well, you were the one who did predict all along. You took him very seriously, comedian that you are. From the beginning, you said this man has a real chance, even as the Hillary Clinton folks were saying, we want to run against him.
I know, and I, you know, those of us like in Michigan and Wisconsin, we kept trying to get a hold of people at the headquarters in Brooklyn. You know, another New York City. I mean, seriously, you couldn't get through the bubble in Brooklyn to say, would you please come out to Wisconsin and Michigan? I voted for Bernie. I was for Bernie, but she lost Wisconsin and Michigan to Bernie. If you lost your own primary, in other words, your people didn't want you to be president, wouldn't you kind of maybe show up there sometime before the last week of the general election? It was mind-boggling how the poor judgment that took place around her.
We're talking to Michael Moore, and I want to turn right now to, you know, the white supremacist rallies that have taken place after what happened in Charlottesville and President Trump.
I think there's blame on both sides, and I have no doubt about it, and you don't have any doubt about it either. And if you reported it accurately, you would say.
Neo-Nazis started this. They showed up in Charlottesville to protest.
Excuse me, they didn't put themselves down as neo, and you had some very bad people in that group. But you also had people that were very fine people on both sides. You had people in that group, excuse me, I saw the same pictures as you did. You had people in that group that were there to protest the taking down of, to them, a very, very important statue and the renaming of a park from Robert E. Lee to another name. I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis and the white nationalists, because they should be condemned totally. But you had many people in that group other than neo-Nazis and white nationalists, okay? And the press has treated them absolutely unfairly. Now, in the other group also, you had some fine people, but you also had troublemakers, and you see them come with the black outfits and with the helmets and with the baseball bats. You had a lot of bad people in the other group too.
That's President Trump talking about the very fine people in Charlottesville, the white supremacists. We're talking about the Ku Klux Klansmen. In Boston, 40,000 people turned out to protest, a small group of people, because they were so horrified. You tell the story in The Terms of My Surrender about your experience as a young man going to Bitburg because President Reagan did. Could you share that story here?
Yes. Well, it came on the TV. I was in a bar with some friends in downtown Flint, Michigan, and Reagan announced that he was going to Bitburg to lay a wreath on the graves of SS Nazi soldiers to honor them in Bitburg, Germany. And people were confused. Why would you want to honor Nazis? And let me just say, this is a side point here. Thank God we've never had another president since Reagan that was so enamored with Nazis. So a friend of mine, Gary, both of his parents were survivors of Auschwitz, and we decided to go to Bitburg to confront Reagan in the cemetery. And we made up some fake press credentials. Gary spoke fluent German. I spoke fluent BS. And we were able to get into the cemetery. We snuck into the cemetery and waited for Reagan to get there. And then we whipped out this banner that said, "We came from Michigan to remind you they killed my family." And the German cops jumped us immediately, ripped the banner out of our hands.
Oh, wait, there was some media there.
Oh, yeah, there was a lot.
Which you had managed to get right next to.
Well, yeah, I saw Pierre Salinger standing over there, and he was working for ABC at the time, and he was President Kennedy's press secretary. So I just went up to him and I said, Mr. Salinger, my friend and I were from Flint, Michigan. We're not press, like he couldn't tell.
So you had press badges.
Yes, we had the badges. We're going to do an action here when Reagan gets here, but we're afraid the Germans are going to hurt us. If you could just have your camera there, because I think the last thing the Germans want today is footage going out across the world of them beating a Jew in the Bitburg cemetery, and Salinger's like, yeah, I'll help you, sure. And so he had his camera right there, and I think that because the cop that had grabbed me had already had his club up over my head, like he was going to come down with it, and he turned and he saw the lens of Pierre Salinger's camera right there, and he goes, and he puts the billy club away, and I didn't get my head cracked open. So then they just hauled us out of there. They put us back in the back of a truck and just hauled us out of there.
So this was shown all over the world.
Yes, we were live on ABC. And because it was, yes, if you remember at the time, if you're old enough, if you saw that, it was quite, people just couldn't understand why Reagan was wanting to lay a wreath on Nazi graves. But like I said, fortunately, we're through that kind of president, and that won't happen again.
You've been taking on these issues from white supremacy, Ku Klux Klansmen, racist violence for quite some time, right back to high school, another story you tell. But your story of the Elks Club.
Yes, I was selected to go to Boys State, which is where you go to play government for a week. Every high school, at least in Michigan, sent 5 girls and 5 boys to Girls State and Boys State, and you elect a girl governor and a boy governor and a state legislature and all that. It's to teach you how to run a campaign, and I didn't want anything to do with it, and so I just stayed in my dorm room the whole time, except I saw a poster one day that said, speech contest, write a speech on the life of Abraham Lincoln and win a prize here at Boys State, sponsored by the Elks Club. And my dad had just gone to join, this is 1971, he'd just gone to join the Elks Club, and he got there and they gave him an application form, and at the top of the application form it said Caucasians only. It's the 70s. It's still legal. The 1964 Civil Rights Act, there was a loophole that allowed racial discrimination could continue if it was a private group or a membership organization. So back then, for instance, you have the Friends of Democracy Now, whatever you were a member of Democracy Now, you could actually racially discriminate as long as you were a private membership group. And I just stood there and I'm thinking, they're sponsoring a contest on the life of Abraham Lincoln, this whites-only organization. So I went and wrote a speech back in my room. I showed up at the contest, I gave it, and I won the contest. And then I had to...
And Elk wasn't choosing.
And no, there was no Elks there. There was like a speech teacher. And the whole thing was slamming the Elks for doing this and slamming Boys State. Why are you having these racists here at this, then I have to give the speech the next day at the boy governor inauguration. And I have to sit next to the head elk who's got big antlers coming out of his hat and a trophy in his lap that he's going to present to me at the end of the speech. And I'm just thinking, oh no, this is not going to end well. And so I gave the speech. And I turned and looked at him, and he's just all beet red. His face is so angry. And I just said at the end of the speech, I just looked at him and I said, and I don't want your stinking trophy. And the whole place erupted in applause. I ran off the stage because I was worried he was going to hurt me. And from that very night on the CBS Evening News with Walter Cronkite, because it was out on the wire services that I did, they did this story, and then it's in the media for the rest of the...
You refused to talk to them.
They wanted me to come on, but no, I was really, I know this is hard to believe, but I was a really shy kid. You know that a little bit about me, don't you? Kind of. I'm on a personal level, I'm a very like this, and back then I was worse, and so I didn't go on the CBS Evening News, but they did the story anyways, and it caused this uproar all over the country. And we had a great, very liberal left U.S. Senator from Michigan named Philip Hart. And he called me and he said, I want to introduce a bill to fix this loophole in the Civil Rights Act, and I want you to come down and testify. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I just told my parents to let me leave the house. So I didn't go to D.C. to testify. But hearings were being held all over the country. A federal judge takes away the tax-exempt status of the Elks Club. And they start getting hit with all this stuff. Liquor licensors were being pulled from their clubs. a big hullabaloo, and a year and a half later, the Elks and all these private groups are finally forced to accept all Americans into their organization, regardless of the color of their skin. And it was such a lesson to learn at the age of 17, a dangerous lesson for me, that you could affect change by doing just a little tiny thing. And again, it was just what I said at the beginning here, is how we're told from the time we're kids that you can't fight City Hall. Why knock your head against the wall? It's not going to do anything. That's the big lie. That's the big lie, that we're nobodies from nowhere and we can't affect change. The truth is that we're all somebody. We are all from somewhere, and the thing that the wealthy elite establishment is afraid of is that if we ever figure out that there's more of us than there are of them, they're in big trouble. They know that, because the thing they must hate about this country, the rich, is it's still at least on paper, in spite of the voter suppression, in spite of the gerrymandering, it's still one person, one vote. That hasn't been changed. So, and there's only so many of them. There's a hell of a lot more of us. And if we take that power in our hands, they're in a boatload of trouble.
Do you think there are a lot more woke folks now?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Look what happened the day after Trump's travel ban. He announces this the week after his inauguration. The next day, tens of thousands of Americans, there was no organization to this, no leadership, no call for a demonstration, none of this. Just people on their own showed up at their local airport, whether they lived in Hays, Kansas, or out at JFK. People just poured out to the airports with homemade signs against the travel ban. That was 1 week after the women's marches all over the country, all over the world. No, I've been very hopeful in the sense that a lot of people have come alive and nobody's going back to bed.
I want to go back to the terms of my surrender. This is the part, well, it's a one-man show, but you've got this part where you talk to someone, and this is musician and activist Tom Morello.
Trump is a curse or Trump is a gift. This is my hope, is that he's a gift, is that he brings into existence the movement that not only dethrones him, but the movement that makes a more just and decent America, that doesn't play by the Democratic Party rules, the business as usual rules. Let's not aim to lose anymore. Let's aim for the world we really want, like a world of equality, of freedom, of justice, where every single kid has an education, not just here, but everywhere, has an education and a chance, where you don't got to be afraid of being, blown up by a drone in the Middle East or being killed by a cop here in the United States of America. Let's make the list of things we really want and fight for those, rather than take what they hand us.
Right.
And this is actor and comedian. This is another night, Hassan Minhaj.
I'm a Muslim, and Republicans and Muslims, we have a lot in common, if you think about it. The same people that want to ban me, we actually are very similar. We were both kind of born into our ideology, right? You ever go up to a Republican and be like, why do you believe that? And be like, I don't know, I was born into it. But it's stupid. I don't know, mom and dad do it, so I do it. We're passionate about things we haven't read.
Right.
And every few months, a fucking psychopath hijacks our ideology. So we're actually very similar.
So there you have Hassan Minhaj, and before that, Tom Morello. I mean, what's this experience been like for you? It is your Broadway debut. It's your life dream, Michael.
Well, yeah, yes. I mean, it's something I wanted to do for some time, and I'm in the middle of making my next film. I'm bringing my TV show back to network television.
So what this is called? In
February. The show it's going to be on the Turner on TNT starting in February. It's called Michael Moore Live from the Apocalypse, and the movie that'll be out in late spring is called Fahrenheit 11/9, and the day that after the election, and so that's So I'm trying to do everything. Well, I don't have a choice. None of us have a choice. We have to do everything. We are in the French Resistance. Everybody has to have that attitude. That you got to get the kids to soccer practice. Well, the kids can walk for the next year till we get rid of Trump. You've got couples therapy at 4. Get along with your spouse for just one more year. We have got to get rid of Trump. I mean, it's serious. I hate to put it this way, but I have a fire lit under me, I guess, and I'm doing whatever I can do, and I think people watching this are doing what they can do, and we just have to reach out and get continue to get more and more people involved in this. Till he's gone, we have to at least discombobulate him to the point where, he's so obsessed about all the things that are going to keep him from focusing on the really bad things that he's going to do. He will take us to war. We will be in a war with this man. And when that happens, I need everybody watching this show, listening to us on the radio, I need everybody to commit that we have to stand up immediately. Don't even stop to if Trump is taking us to war, you have to automatically assume this is an insane idea from an insane man. It's a lie we're being told. My fear is that the so-called liberal establishment, the Democrats, 29 Democrats in the Senate voted to let Bush invade Iraq. The New York Times got behind the war in Iraq. Judith Miller, they put stories on the front page that weren't true. The New Yorker magazine ran an editorial I think it was the week before the war, saying that we should do this. These are our liberal establishment. It has to be called into question here, and we have to not follow them if they do that again. And in the show, I actually play a couple of clips of the night Trump bombed Syria, that Syrian airfield. Right away on MSNBC and on CNN, people were waxing poetic about Trump is now the president.
We've got Brian Williams right here, not in the studio, but the clip of Brian Williams the night that the U.S. bombed that air base when he was quoting Leonard Cohen.
We see these beautiful pictures at night from the decks of these two U.S. Navy vessels in the eastern Mediterranean. I am tempted to quote the great Leonard Cohen, "I'm guided by the beauty of our weapons." And they are beautiful pictures of fearsome armaments making what is for them a brief flight over to this airfield. What did they hit?
So that's MSNBC's Brian Williams, not Fox, and this is CNN's Fareed Zakaria.
I think Donald Trump became president of the United States. I think this was actually a big moment because candidate Trump had said that he would never get involved in the Syrian civil war. He told President Obama, you cannot do this without the authorization of Congress. He seemed unconcerned with global norms. President Trump recognized that the president of the United States does have to act to enforce international norms, does have to have this broader moral and political purpose.
The media has been calling President Trump a liar, but when it comes to war, they circle the wagons around the White House. Why?
Liberals, and Democrats often are afraid of being accused of being wimps or weak-willed, not strong, not pro-America, and so they're so eager to just hop on, so that nobody questions their patriotism. This is what has to be avoided this next time here with Trump, because I'm afraid that they're the same people, so they're going to be. I could write the New York Times editorial right now endorsing Trump's war. The first 11 paragraphs will criticize him for being an awful president in perfect time speak, and then the last paragraph will tell us why this though is a just war. And and you look back at that time, Bill Keller writing a column in favor of the war, who's then became the editor of the Times. Nick Kristof attacking me on the day that Fahrenheit 9/11 was in theaters, saying Michael Moore is bad for us. He our side. We don't need the Michael Moores because he calls Bush a liar. Kristof says, yes, Bush stretches the truth. But to call him a liar, Michael Moore sounds like those Republicans who said Bill and Hillary killed Vince Foster. I mean, that's the kind of attack that I got from the so-called liberal press, because I stuck my neck out at the beginning of the war and said this was a lie. And when the war started, I didn't hop on board like I was supposed to. When Bush had his 70% approval rating, the war had a 70% approval rating. The Dixie Chicks, you, Chris Hedges, Bill Maher, others who stuck their necks out, we went through, I don't know if you've ever discussed this, but, those of us who were not going to shut up took a lot.
I want to go back to this minute, which was you on the Oscar stage, 2003. It was
the fifth night of the war.
the 5th night of the war, and this is when you won an Oscar for Columbine, Bowling for Columbine.
We like nonfiction. We like nonfiction, and we live in fictitious times. We live in a time where we have fictitious election results that elects a fictitious president. We live in a time where we have a man sending us to war for fictitious reasons, whether it's the fictition of duct tape or the fictitious of orange alerts. We are against this war, Mr. Bush. Shame on you, Mr. Bush. Shame on you.
That was a remarkable moment. You're on the world stage. You have a global audience. Get a lot of offers after that?
No, right after that, the studio that was going to fund my next film canceled it. That was the best thing that happened to me, because everything else was one death threat after another, day after day. People started assaulting me on the streets. I've spoken to you about this before, and then, you know, I mean, people coming at me with various weapons. I had to have bodyguards. It was awful, but I think it wasn't just because the hate people on radio and Fox and whatever were encouraging. You know, O'Reilly one night said on his show, "I'm usually against the death penalty, except for when it comes to Michael Moore." You know, you know,
you're on Broadway now, and he's no longer at Fox.
Yes, I didn't think of it that way. But, well, you know, listen, the people that listen to those shows got permission from the O'Reillys and the Glenn Becks and the Limbaughs that it was okay to harm people like me and the Dixie Chicks and others. I'm still here. So I got through all that. And but this next time when we go to war, and I will say this again, Trump will take us to war. He's out there in Bedminster, New Jersey, you know, last month, threatening fire and fury. You know, I mean, I ask the audience every night, can we all just agree that no good idea has ever come out of Bedminster, New Jersey? I mean, just no offense to the town. I'm just saying that's not where you start a nuclear war. If Trump says that North Korea suddenly is the enemy and we have to, do not believe this. Do not go to war. Unless you see North Korean troops marching through that arch down in Washington Square Park, or if a friend calls you from the vegan section at Chelsea Market and says, there are North Koreans marching down the aisle, grabbing all the vegan food. Okay, then maybe, but still, question it. Question it. Do not follow along with the liberal New York Times, with the liberal commentators, the so-called liberal, the Democrats in the Senate who won't stand up. As we sit here right now doing this interview, not a single Democrat in the U.S. Senate has called for his impeachment, has stood up on the floor and said, I demand the impeachment of Donald Trump. Not one Democrat can say that yet in the Senate. There have been a number in the House, Maxine Waters and others, but nobody in the Senate. This is the people that are supposed to be representing us still don't have the spine that's going to be needed to fight Trump and to make sure we don't have a two-term Trump.
And you don't think the woke folks in the streets, the people who marched in Boston, the NFL players...
That has to continue. It has to continue and not stop. Because remember, a month before the war started in Iraq, New York City, how many were in the streets? Wasn't it like 500,000?
I mean, millions rocked the world.
And then around the world, it was millions. And then the war started, and people around the world still protested. But here, the protests shrunk. People started to be quiet about it. That can't happen this time. Everybody off the bench. Everybody in the pool. Seriously, this is it. This is it. The line has been drawn, and we're not dealing with a joke here. This is a person hell-bent on keeping his base, white America, the 64% of white guys that voted for him. We talk about how the majority of white women, but remember, 2/3, every 3 guys, white guys you see out on the street, 2 of them voted for Trump.
You don't think the country will take the knee against war?
I'm hoping we will. I'm hoping people will. I'm hoping they will not follow. But that night, when all he did was fire some missiles into Syria, and everybody's like, you know, Fareed Zakaria, he's a good guy. He's a smart guy. Why would you say what you said? That clip you just showed? You know, Van Jones said a similar thing about he's become president. It's like, no, stop. Stop. Everybody has to stay together. Talk about locking arms at a football game. We all have to lock arms here, or Trump is going to lead us down a path we may not be able to recover from.